So take a moment, just those of you who are at meditation, you're on that, but those of us who have not, try to kind of get your mind settled here. You know, your body is here. Now we want to make sure our minds have joined us. So we just let go of whatever busyness was going on in our mind about other things a minute ago. And try not to follow the stories about what's going to happen later. Just settle into being here. And think about the reason you decided to show up. And so we want to always set an intention or a motivation to use this time well with respect to that reason. And it's nice if we can make it very expansive by wishing that using our time well will not just benefit ourselves, but it's going to ripple out to benefit those around us. And to keep our mind in that neighborhood of thought, of benefiting others. Let's recite the four immeasurables. It's in the book, it's on page something. 34. 34, thank you. I knew it 2 seconds ago. Okay. So take a moment to just, in your minds, you know, visualize in your mind, your friends, your loved ones, the people in this room, whatever. Just, you know, really try to think about real beings, be your pets, whatever. So that these words aren't just words, but that you have, you know, that you have an object for the words, and those objects are sentient beings. So the first is the immeasurable mind of love. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So pause and just send loving energy. What is a sentient being? And since we live on a globe, you know, we're literally in the center of a vast number of sentient beings, not just people, but animals, insects, fish. And we just want to generate this wish that they have happiness, and that they have the causes of happiness. And then the second line is the immeasurable mind of compassion. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Obviously, we can't just make this happen, but it's about developing in our minds this way of thinking about others, recognizing that just like us, others want happiness, they want to be free of suffering. And the next is the immeasurable mind of joy, the joy of seeing others happy and the wish for them to never be separated from. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And don't forget to include yourself in that thought. And then finally, we want equanimity. Because we don't want to just wish these for people we like or sentient beings we like or animals that we like. This is for everybody. So the immeasurable mind of equanimity, universal equanimity. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So y'all did a meditation this morning on working on those particular things, attachment and anger. So recognizing that it is possible to develop a mind that whether we like someone, agree with someone, really think someone's doing bad things, all those kinds of attitudes, we can still wish for them to be free of suffering. And we can wish for them to have happiness, not perhaps the happiness they think they should get or whatever, just true happiness, a happiness that is free of suffering, a happiness that is free of disturbing states of mind. So we and always include ourselves in these things, as we're sentient beings who want happiness. So now we'll recite the refuge prayer for those who take refuge in the Dharma. Recite this 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Cold.
Well, no, when we came in, it was 71 naturally, but I noticed it started to climb, so I turned on the AC.
Everybody enjoying the cool front? I certainly am. I'm quite happy today. Not that that's remotely important. But the reason why I'm in a good mood is because I was reading one of His Holiness's books this morning. And I always feel like 9,000% better when I read the words of the Dalai Lama. I can highly recommend it. Just pretty much any of his books are uplifting. And they're not uplifting with, platitudes or just the kind of, he talks about anger, these things, but it's the way he clearly has no doubt about our potential to let go of every emotion, and to cultivate our positive states of mind. And so it's a very hopeful attitude. It's just like you're not worried about it. Of course, that's, we have that basis and we'll get there. So now, one of the benefits, I think, of doing meditations or doing, really thinking about equanimity and love and compassion for all beings, how that sets a tone for your mind, to be more open to just going in a positive direction with our thoughts instead of noticing, immediately the not so great things in our thoughts. Because really, when you look at it, most of our life is full of neutral events. We wake up, we eat something, we brush our teeth, we take a shower, we get dressed. It's just a bunch of activities, that we do. And then we see people and we da 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 da. What creates all the drama is the stories we're creating in our mind. We see someone and we immediately go to some sort of story about them. It could be complete strangers and we've got a story about them. We don't like the way they drive, we've got a story about them. This is how we entertain ourselves all day long, is we just keep, writing novels mostly about others or ourselves. We're just thinking about, or we're either, we might be elated, which is why it absolutely doesn't matter that I'm just so happy this morning, because it's a story, it feels good to be happy. But what we're looking for in our spiritual development is the ability to feel this no matter what's going on. That it doesn't require some, exposure to His Holiness's words to be happy. It is just a state of peace and hopefulness, I think, is in there. That it's a attitude that says it's okay, that all this horrible stuff that happens in the world is the result of these disturbing states of mind. And when we, each one of us need to work on reducing those disturbing states of, and slowly, that's how things get better. And I mean slowly. And goodness and Buddhism, they teach, past and future lives. We have more time. So anyway. And it's really interesting, when you think back. I was talking, about earlier about how this morning, for some reason, I just remembered a moment where I was 7 and I was going to church. I went to church every Sunday. I begged to go to church because my parents didn't send me to church. And I went with my best friend, and her mother, I guess maybe they alternate, but I think her mother drove us most of the time. Anyway, they came to the house and my dad said, I don't think she's going this morning, and she left. And then I come bopping down the stairs, ready to go. And they left. And I felt devastated. I just felt that horrible, oh no, I've been left behind. That, in a way that only 7-year-olds can feel, except I still remember it. I'm 69 years old. I still remember that. What's helpful for me is to keep in mind that everybody has that. Everybody has that memory. Everybody has that experience. Everybody, all over the planet. Every single being has these moments where they just are devastated and they're suffering. They have, moments that we all know are devastating, like, living in a war zone, seeing loved ones die, all those kind of things. But we also have all these little tiny, like, just things of just like, I'm left out. Somebody forgot, whatever. And that's a good jumping off place for caring about others. Remembering we're not different. We may have completely different views. We may think that the way to happiness is to take over other countries, all this kind of stuff. We may be completely deluded about what is going to create happiness for themselves or their people or whatever they think, but they all have this core suffering they're trying to heal or never experience. So it's really nice to have a hook for yourself to help you remember we're not talking about a bunch of different people, like as if they're completely different than ourselves. So sometimes if you're not good at thinking of others in a kind way, you need to think of them as babies. You need to think of them as, because they were all one, and think about how if they were a crying baby, you'd pick them up. So just some hook for your mind to be able to use to increase your good qualities instead of your what about me qualities. That it's a way of being able to step out of our usual focus of just worried about ourselves and our world, our little circle of concern, and being able to include everybody in it. And so these are kind of things that, we have to think about. We have to, try to, find something that's a hook. And so that's why in the morning, this is that bookend thing that I talk about all the time. When you get up in the morning, you try to set a motivation that will help set your tone for the day. We need to find something every day that stirs our heart a little bit, that isn't just words, that isn't just doing the checklist. Oh, I've done that. I said I'd do that. But actually, you feel it and you act from that place. It's very brief. Not like you have to, spend an hour cultivating it. It's more like you have to think about it. And then like during the week, you may have some experience and go, oh, I'm going to use that. It's just a way, a tool to connect our humanity with each other. So this does not mean having compassion and love for sentient beings does not mean we have to like them or think that they're on the right track or think they should just get whatever it is they want. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with recognizing we're interdependent. Can you imagine what the world would be like if all the sentient beings in the world had a peaceful, loving mind? Or all the things that you're afraid of, would they exist? This is the value of working on it in ourselves, because at the end of the day, we sleep better when we feel like we haven't participated in the harm, when we haven't been sarcastic or criticize, judging, blah, 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 when we've said nice things to people, or at least kept our mouth shut when our first thought is something not so nice, those kinds of things, that it's much easier at the end of the day to feel like, well, I did okay today. Or I help people today. And sometimes that help can be just, I used to have friends that a couple that they didn't like the same movies at all, so they made a deal that they'd alternate who gets to choose the movie, but they also didn't like to go to the movies by themselves. So the person who wasn't choosing the movie that week was just generous in going with their partner to the movies because they liked the movie. So it wasn't, they didn't go to the movie going, I can't believe you like this, and oh my God, I'm such a great person for tolerating this for 2 hours with you, No, it was just, I'm going because I want to be with you. You know, you're my partner and this is what you like. And so I'm going to enjoy watching you enjoy it. That again is taking your mind off that self-centered you and bringing in, you know, how can I be of help? So we just need to find our own way towards, hooking that, because we all have it. We all are capable of having, real compassion arise, genuine, joy at someone else's happiness, genuine compassion for someone's suffering, and just, that's such a great quality we have. Rejoicing in the fact that we're even capable of that is worth doing, being happy about it. This is the wonderful news about human beings, and animals, as we all who have pets know. So, and the truth is, happiness isn't getting what you want. Happiness is not doing just what you like. So we've talked about it before. So what happens? What is it when we just keep going from one thing we like to the next thing we like to the next thing we like? What kind of activity is that?
It's a habit.
Yeah, first it's a habit, and most of us have it. It's a very common habit. So, what is the habit? What kind of mind is it?
Taking pleasure.
Desire.
Yeah, it's desire. It's just like, oh, and then as soon as, okay, I'm finished with that, we find something else, and something else, and something else, and there's something else, because we're not content. So we gotta find something that will engage us in some entertaining or whatever way, pleasurable way. So that habit of thinking, I've got to find something out here to soothe me or to make me smile or to please my taste buds or to, whatever, this constant need is an addiction to sensory pleasures. There's nothing wrong with enjoying things. It's thinking that that's what happiness is. Because that's not true. I'm waiting for an argument. It's not about seeking, what's the word? Indifference to everything you experience, where you just don't care if you get what you want or you don't get what you want. It's not about indifference. It's about understanding that external objects cannot create mental states. What is creating the mental state when you get like your coffee just like you like it?
Impressions.
I'm sorry?
Impressions. Their interpretations of the effects.
And attachment. It's really attachment to the, oh, I like that, that's what's generating this feeling of happiness from the coffee. Projection. Is that what yeah, I'm getting hearing aids soon. Everything will improve. Because they're for clarity, not for volume. And we're going to say that that's why I can't pronounce anything, but that's also not true. It's really that it's our belief that external thing can create happiness for us, that creates this sort of like chase. You know. So what happens when, for the old people in the room, for the young people, you probably haven't had this experience yet, but the old people in the room, you go to the doctor and they say, I'm sorry, but you just can't have that anymore. No more coffee for you. No more chocolate cake for you. No more sugar for you. No more, I don't know, whatever. What do we usually have with that?
Disappointment.
Loss, a sense of loss. I'm losing some of my happiness, Like-
Suffering.
And that's totally not true. First of all, in that moment, you're not suffering. It's not like you had the chocolate cake in front of you and you're going to your mouth and he took it away. It's just a thought. Oh, you mean I can never have it? It's a loss. Well, it's a story we've made up. And we make them up immediately because we really believe it's out there. And that's why we try to craft this perfect life in a perfect environment with the perfect furniture and the perfect tech and the perfect clothes and the perfect whatever. We're just always seeking that somehow we get everything arranged just so we'll be fine. And it's never true. It's almost not even true for like 5 seconds. Because within that 5 seconds, we go, oh, I have to move that a little bit this way, or, oh, I have to go to work now. It's just constant because we're putting our wrong objects. So we want to notice how we feel after we've done things, moments, events, whatever, that's support our inner peace, our inner joy, our inner sense of contentment. Have you ever volunteered to do something the whole time before you get there, you're kind of going, why did I volunteer for this? Anybody owns a truck, they all know this experience. It's this kind of thing, but then you get there and you're still kind of, but then, you do it. And then when you leave, you go, oh, I'm so glad I did that. What's that about? Stump the audience.
I guess.
Laziness?
Okay,
Yeah, I guess.
let's finish the end of the story. So we don't want to go. That's certainly, laziness can be the reason why we don't want to go, or it's just like inconvenient, or or if you're like me, you never want to go anywhere. So, okay, but then you go, right? And then you're leaving now and you think to yourself, I'm so glad I did that. Where does that mind come from? Helping somebody else. Following through on a commitment.
Coming an objection.
Overcoming that objection. Oh, we need to notice that we actually feel better doing things that are not about us at all. And how that sense, you don't have to buy anything for it. And it doesn't mean you have to go volunteer, although never a bad thing. But it's just that sense, if we reorient our perspective, instead of thinking, what's in it for me, think about, what can I bring to them? Or what can I bring to this event? If we just change the angle that we're looking at it, nothing really actually different has to actually happen, but that different perspective on the event itself can really change how you interact with others. It's really good before family visit, Thanksgiving weekend. If you just have this attitude, okay, will my family not embarrass me this year? Not, notice that I'm not married, blah, blah, whatever it is, all the different ways in which families irritate each other, all the little trigger points. But instead, you just had the perspective of being open to spending some time with this people that you didn't get to choose, but who care about you, or you wouldn't show up at all. Or if you do show up because you don't like them, why? What is it you're after? You after finally having perfect parents that, love you unconditionally, is that what you're looking for? Are you going to get it? And is that even possible during Thanksgiving dinner? So we really want to look at what is my motivation here? Because so often we're disappointed or hurt because we're not getting what we wanted. And what we wanted was an expectation that really isn't reasonable. It's one thing if you write notes to all of them saying, going, okay, I'm coming and this is what I need from you. Now you might need to do that. I'm not saying that's a bad idea. It's that, but they may not give it to you. There's nothing wrong with asking for what we need. It's where we get twisted is when we get mad when someone doesn't give it to us. Have you ever given a gift where you and then got the gift back, someone else's gift to you, you give them a gift, they give you a gift, and you open yours and you kind of going, I spent too much on their gift. Most of us are probably past that stage, but it's, or we think they didn't put much thought in this, or did they just grab this out of their closet just because they saw me walking up the walk with a gift? It's just hilarious how we are. This is the stories we make up. But working with our mind, our attitude, recognizing when we are trying to hold someone to account and they don't know about it can be very helpful before gatherings of people, to realize, okay, step back here, might be a little too much to ask to have the family holiday of your dreams or the Hallmark movie, it's just, we have to, fess up that maybe our expectations are too high. And are we living up to that picture? So it's these kind of ways of just noticing, okay, I have a hook here, I have buttons here, and I'm entering a condition like a family gathering where those buttons can be easily pushed. So I need to be aware of that so that I can choose not to be reactive if something happens that pushes those buttons, because then it gets bigger, doesn't it?
Knowing that everybody there are also doing that, maybe not on you, but they want regard.
They're exactly like you.
I'm just, it seems to me that there's a little bit more entailed than saying, I want to choose not to be reactive. But my question is, how do you do that? Because
So what have we talked about before, Anne? What is a step in that process that helps?
what we were just talking about, we're getting together at a family gathering,
Right.
and it's like, oh, okay, well, I choose not to react.
Okay, so what's happened when you have that thought? What has to happen to have that thought?
You have to have an awareness
The button's been pushed.
Because it's like a.
Listen,
habit then
listen, the
from-
button has been pushed. You don't need to think, I'm not going to be reactive, if the button hadn't been pushed. So these are the steps. The button's been pushed. You realize it. You have to have that awareness. Like Margaret said, you have to have that my button's been pushed. And then you pause. These are these are habits you have to develop. It's not like, like the first time it happens and you have this thought and you go, and you're going to fail. Just like, that's part of the process of learning. But the main thing is to recognize their steps. So you have the step of, first of all, going, okay, I'm going into this gathering and I know it's a good condition for my buttons to be pressed. I've had that experience from the past. So this is, it's likely to happen. I'm sensitive around this group of people. So you just, you know that going in. That's self-awareness. Then, when one of those things happens, you give yourself the space, you're practicing this, of course, to just step back in your mind. Or you react, you go, okay, next time I'll try to step back in my mind. It's a process. And you have to learn each step and practice each step. And you're going to fail sometimes, where you just say what you usually say, get mad, or just kind of go, whatever, get huffy, that's okay. I mean, this is the process. But slowly, as you succeed, one of those times you're going to succeed and you're just going to go, I'm not reacting. That's not going to do it. Now, you may have to walk out of the room in order to succeed. I envision literally just my mouth being glued shut, things like that, whatever you need. And then you think later, you look, okay, did I feel better that we didn't have that exchange? Because we really have to look, do you ever leave a situation like that and you keep thinking about all the things you wish you had said and they're all not nice? Wish I'd said this, because we want to get even, right? Because they've hurt us. Now we want to, turn it back on them. Does that energy actually feel good? That's one of the things you want to pay attention to, is that kind of anger energy may feel powerful, but powerful's different from it feeling good. It's an agitated state of mind. And yes, there's release when we dump it on somebody else. But do we really feel good about the whole experience? So we want to check into that. And then if we do feel good, we want to go, okay, what's that about? You have to explore. Oh, I really like getting even. You had to kind of really look. Oh, I like coming up with the zinger, blah, blah, blah. It feels good to have the zinger, because it proves I'm smarter than they are, because my zinger was better than theirs. Yeah, I don't know. We're really ridiculous. I mean, I've had all these kinds of reactions. I mean, trust me. I had to practice all these steps for a very long time. But so the point is, it's not like I'm not telling you what to think. It's that you want to check up and see, what is this experience really like for you? And then see, well, maybe I want to let this go. Because I hate these visits. Because there's always they're wrought with me waiting for some zinger, or just finally the zinger occurs and everybody falls apart. So you want to kind of check up and make a decision whether you want to keep going in that direction or whether you want to try some different strategies. And it takes time. And you can go along and not react and not react and not react. And then somebody does something else and you react. It's like you filled your quote sheet. Okay. Blow my top. But that's okay too, because it's a process of learning. It's not a process of, it's not a test. You know, it's not even a competition, even though sometimes when we get around family members, we feel like it's a competition. And they may make it a competition, but you don't have to play. Oh. And then we have to forgive ourselves for not getting it just right, close to right, or not getting anywhere close to what we wanted to do, what we set out to do. You know, because it's exactly like Anne was saying, it's a habit. You know, and when it arises, when some negative state of mind arises, it takes charge. We're out of control due to it. So it is hard to just not do anything. You know, this is not an easy task. It just has a huge payoff. Because eventually you don't have those triggers. They're not triggers for you anymore. They can't press that button. And that's real freeing. Because then you're see, you know, that lets you see that, you know, it's just a collection of people just like you who all have triggers, who all worry about this or that gathering, you know, that everybody's there with the same stuff, you know, and you can just have compassion. So when they say something that used to be a trigger, you can have compassion. You know, you may not know where it's coming from or why they think that's important or whatever, but it's just clearly, you know, when people try to agitate, you know, that's not, it's coming from some sort of suffering spot. And we're all wounded. That wounds arises from ignorance, from how we see reality. So it's just this, but so we need to be gentle with each other, with ourselves first. You know, if you're yelling at yourself, it's hard to be gentle with someone else. You know, it's you know, you don't start with, I'm not even going to have that reaction at all. That's too, that, you know, that's not going to happen. You know, you have to start with, I know I'm sensitive on whatever, you know, but I don't have to say anything. I don't have to feed that moment.
Would it be helpful to start the conversation with a compliment?
No,
Not so much.
we're talking about family. I mean, when you think about habits, family habits are long term, right? So, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but you know, it's just, you know, like siblings seem to just fall into the same kind of pattern of energy, you know, in no time, especially if they don't see each other very often, because you know, it's like, you know, whatever. And it can be, and finally, what's nice is sometimes you get so old that you can't remember. So, you know, nothing feels so dangerous, but these are the people who constituted what was your safety when you're very vulnerable as a dependent child. And very few families live up to that role very well, you know. So we've got wounds from that. And everybody does, though. You know, so it's like, you know, you're really walking amongst the wounded now when you have these gatherings. You know, I remember I do know I have one nun friend who had said her family was really pretty good going. But oh, that's nice. So you don't have to be dysfunctional to become a nun. Okay, that's good. All right. So, you know, but it's it's really allowing, for me, I would, I had to work on allowing myself to have self-compassion for having been wounded in the first place. That, yeah, it's painful when people that, you love, da, 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 which really, in this case, usually means they were supposed to love me better, that's the child part. Don't you know me by now? Don't you know when you say that it hurts me? Blah, blah, blah. That little person, you know. We need to, be self-compassionate. And we're taking a risk by going into the family gathering or whatever situation it is that where you're vulnerable to having your buttons pressed. So you're being brave. So you want to, acknowledge that, give yourself support for that, and then you remember that these are people you care about. There's a reason why you keep showing up. And so you want to have some compassion for them, acknowledging in your own heart that they're also wounded, just so you have a much easier, softer approach. And that can be all in your head. You don't have to share any of this with anyone. You don't have to go up to the person who always says something really hurtful to you and say, I know you're suffering. Or I forgive you for all the zingers that you ever said to me. You don't have to do that. If there's an opportunity to ever do that, that's great because you might be able to heal the relationship. But you don't have to make yourself, you don't have to, throw off all your armor. What you're trying to do is learn that the attitudes of compassion, of recognizing our sameness, the humanity between us is a form of armor. It's the armor of loving kindness, of compassion, of love. Bodhicitta, this idea that just like me, you want happiness and don't want to suffer, and you don't know what you're doing either. You think that it's getting what you want, just like I think it's getting what I want. And so those two energies clash together, So it's all about perspective. We need to step back and try to come at it from a different angle. And one of those angles is self-compassion. Recognizing that we're vulnerable beings that get hurt, and want understanding and care and all that kind of stuff. And we don't know exactly how to go about it. And that we can really see that in the way we talk to ourselves. Because we're not necessarily nurturing to ourselves either. So it's hard. It is, but the payoff's huge. And just, have in your mind that, oh, maybe someday none of these little, triggers will be so sensitive. Because that's very freeing. Isn't that other people won't try to step on them, but it's because they're misunderstanding, how they can be free of suffering. Yeah.
The meditation
Yeah.
that Anthony gave on delusions and antidotes.
Yeah.
It's really like, I don't like to use the word magical, but same kind of meaning. There's something that I've been going through, and I can't remember what he said,
But you're going to listen to it again.
but of course, because it reduced the suffering that I was putting on myself,
Right.
and it's just like that.
Yeah.
Going to a family gathering, I can listen to that meditation again and reduce the suffering.
Well, and you can do it before you go.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And then you can do it when you get home. It's absolutely
Great. You can do it.
We have, yes. Well, why do you think I read His Holiness's books before I come here? I mean, I'm terrified, it's like, oh, I get today's, it was a force for good. I have several. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? We have tools and why do we not just do meditations in here? Because you also need someone to teach you the Dharma. You can listen to the recordings. Anybody who meditates can lead a meditation. Not everybody can teach the Dharma, So, that's why we have people lead the meditations. That's why I stood here and run my mouth so long, but it's because you need both. You need some instruction, and then you need some tools to put it into practice, how to meditate on it. And then eventually you get skilled at that and you can do it in your head. You don't have to listen to the recording. And then you can go at your own speed. You can be looking at something and go, what I pulled up something basically it's like you study the teachings, reflect on the teachings, meditate on any aha moments. So when you're listening to them, you go, are you reading a paragraph and you go, you want to pause there and let it sink in a little deeper, because we want to really have an experience of those aha moments. We don't want it to just be words that we like. We want it to be like, because we have that reaction to things, don't we? We have this kind of like, oh, that's true. It resonates in some way. We want to hang there for a while so that we can recreate that when we're thinking about it, Yep.
That was combining method and wisdom.
I don't know. You always come up with these technical questions. I can't figure out the answer. But I mean, it's how the method becomes wisdom. And wisdom just means a mind, you've got it. It's integral to who you are. They're not things. Method's not a thing. They're states of mind, like compassion and loving kindness and skillful means of how to, interact and all that kind of stuff. And wisdom is when you slowly recognize the stuff that's clouding, that's distorting our good qualities, that's mixing attachment with an aversion with, these wishes for love and compassion for others, that we've got to get skilled at that in order to feel better. But the more that we allow ourselves to experience those positive feelings about, how it feels when you're practicing loving kindness, how it feels when you have a connection with someone, those positive feelings change our brain. And that's going to support us. So we don't say that the mind and the brain are the same in Buddhism, but the brain supports us. And then actually our mind, the way we think, can change that, the way the brain works. I'll give you a little interlude. Is that right? An intermission from my voice and give you someone else's. Okay.
Do you have share audio selected too?
How do I do that?
Just sure. So stop the share for a moment. And now click the share icon again. And then yeah.
Cool. Learn something new every day. I know it's paused. I don't know what it's doing. Oh, there we go. Okay, I don't know what this is.
It's
and
not
this-
fine.
I know, I don't know why
Oh,
this is there.
Oh, if these two. And then let's try sharing again. And then click the share
Technology.
sound. You would think that would be on by default, right?
Why is it asking me this? Oh, I don't have a Zoom audio device.
Wow.
I have no idea what the zip code.
Password?
Yeah, I don't know what the password is. I'm gonna hope it's this one, but I don't think it is. Go to Control Center in the menu bar and click Standard. Oh, like I know where that is. Too bad. We're just gonna get put up with lousy sound, okay? Okay, this is a neuroscientist, and she's talking about a second study. She just talked about a first study, and this is a study on meditation. So she's just switched to the second study, which is the subjects were people who'd never meditated before.
What we did is.
Okay, that's not loud enough. Okay. I didn't know it was so complicated. Don't want it paused. What's happened? I know I'm screen sharing. Okay, now. I'm so disappointed.
In this study, what we did is we took people who.
I can see it just fine. It's big on my screen. Oh, crap.
You want to try sending it to me?
No, I'm going to give up in a minute. It's just not going to do that part.
Who had never meditated before, and we put them in the scanner, and then we put them through an 8-week meditation-based stress reduction program, where they were told to meditate every day for 30 to 40 minutes. And then we scanned them again at the end of the 8 weeks, and this is what we found. So what you can see is that several areas became larger. In this slide, we can see the hippocampus. And in the graph, the controls are in blue and the meditation subjects are in red. And what we see is that the hippocampus, and this is an area that's important for learning and memory. It's also important for emotion regulation. And what's interesting is there's less gray matter in this region in people who have depression and PTSD. Another region we identified was the temporal parietal junction, which is here above your ear. And it's important for perspective taking and empathy and compassion. And again, these are both functions which people report changing when they start practicing meditation and yoga. Another region we identified was the amygdala. And the amygdala is the fight or flight part of your brain. And here we actually found a decrease in gray matter. And what was interesting was that the change in gray matter was correlated with the change in stress. So the more stress reduction people reported, the smaller the amygdala became. And this was really interesting because it's sort of the opposite and parallel of what some animal studies have shown. So Chatterjee and colleagues using rodents, they took rodents who were just happy, normal rodents, and they had them in their cage, and they measured their amygdala, and then they put them through a 10-day stress regimen. And at the end of the 10 days, they measured their amygdala, and this exact same analogous part of their rat brain grew. So we found a decrease with stress, they found an increase with stress. What was interesting is that then they left the animals alone, and 3 weeks later they went back and tested them again. And 3 weeks later, that same part of the amygdala was still large, and the animals, even though they were in their original cages where they were happy, were still acting stressed out. So they, were cowering in the corner and they just weren't exploring the space the way they had before. And so this is the exact opposite of what we saw with the humans, because with the humans, nothing has changed with their environment. They still had their stressful jobs, all the difficult people in their lives are still being difficult, and the economy still sucked, but yet, their amygdala got smaller and they were reporting less stress. And so together these really showed that the change in the amygdala, it's not responding to the change in the environment, but rather it's representing the change in the people's reaction and relationship to their environment. And then the other thing that the study shows us is that it wasn't just that people were saying, oh, I feel better, or that it was a placebo response, or that they were trying to please us, that there was an actual neurobiological reason why they were saying they felt less stressed. And so the idea that I'd like to share with all of you today is that meditation can literally change your brain. Thank you.
After meditation that Anthony gave, that was my experience.
Yeah, and so this is something that we have to on my laptop. Is it, oh, you mean I'm not sharing anything anymore?
Oh, okay.
So anyway, is it too loud now? Okay, all right. So this was, so they took people who had never meditated. They went through an 8-week meditation course, which was probably MDF, whatever that is, mindfulness stress reduction, because that's an 8-week program. And the amygdala flight thing, so it became smaller and it stayed smaller, so, and the rats who went through stress, so we're still torturing rats and experiments, their amygdala grew and stayed that way, even though they were removed out of the stressful situation. So this is really important. What she said, what she pointed out, was that it had nothing to do with any changes in the external environment. Nothing. It's entirely working on the mind. And it's not even, it's through, meditation is not painful in the sense of, like, I don't know, going to the dentist. It's something that you can only do at your own pace. I mean, you can be guided and all that stuff, but whatever you're experiencing is at your own pace. It's an inner process. You don't have to hit a button going, okay, next. Not like the rats. So it's not, they recommend that you stop meditating while you still like it. So you don't sit there until you're in hell. You get, so you pace yourself. It is helpful to go through a program like that, to have a, especially if you're totally new to the whole idea of it, and especially if you've had tremendous stress in your life, but study after study after study shows that we can make changes in our brain this way. So it's an inner process. It's not external. And so things like when they tested long-term meditators like Tibetan monks, that the parts of their brain that are naturally more active are the parts that light up with compassion and love, and the parts of their brain that are stressed is smaller. It's it's like, it's interesting to see evidence that what they say about their experience can be validated, so that it's not their imagination. So it's worth trying, so And there are all sorts resources like this. Like that was a TED talk, so if you need more convincing, you can find that. But the truth, I don't even know the expression. It really is about what, if you allow yourself to experience this, do it. You have to do it to have an experience, if you allow yourself to wake up in the morning and try to set a positive intention, to think about loving care, loving kindness, and all that kind of stuff, you might notice after a few weeks that your day goes better. And when you skip that part, it doesn't go as well. But you have to experience it you can't, it's not something you can keep reading about and have it. You have to just do the work. And the work's not really painful, even though I hated meditation. That's just me though. What do you think? Hi, Cecilia.
It can be so much content to work on. Sometimes it's difficult to say, all right, where do I go? Where do I start? I mean, I suppose if
Yep.
when I'm experiencing something in particular, like if anger is an issue for the day, or find myself overly attached, and then I'll do death, or so antidotes for specific
Right.
states of mind. But I guess just for daily practice,
Yeah, for daily practice, you want to always do something with compassion, loving kindness kind of thing towards yourself and then to others, because that's the muscle you want to really develop, because that will be that's useful in any situation, is to have that mind arise. But when we're also trying to develop a specific thing, like yes, I did say I hate meditation. That's exactly what I said. That's just going, oh, you couldn't have said that. No, I hated it when I started. Oh my goodness. Blech. But I got over it. So there I am, a nun who hates meditation. It was a frightening thing. Anyway, but you get over yourself. That's part of it, is that recognition that I just don't want to do it. And so I'm acting like a child. I'm not giving it any chance at all because it's just not appealing to me. I mean, I know people who were born meditating, they started when they were like 4 meditating. I'm not one of them. Maybe next life, so. Well, when you're working on a particular issue, so you say but you always want to start with loving kindness towards yourself and others. I mean, one of the reasons we want to reduce our anger is out of our desire to have loving kindness, because we're not that when we're angry. It doesn't feel good to ourselves to be angry. We don't like the feeling, and we're tired of yelling at our partner, or being short-tempered or whatever, or just whatever we are. I was really good at anger and sarcasm and zingers, all that stuff. And when I met Buddhism, it was like, oh, a tool to change. So I was very happy about that. And so it's, so then you work on the anger. It's not like you have to move through these meditations. You can be doing one, and then there's some experience you're having, you just stop. You don't have to go further. You just sit with that. It's not, it's not, you got to develop your pace, and and we definitely don't want to skip over those aha moments. Oh, yeah, I can relate to that, kind of thing. Maybe that is true. So anyway.
Esther was asking, how long did it take you to start liking?
Once I started doing it, because that's the key, right? You don't like it, so you don't really do it. You know, you show up and then you kind of don't do it. So once I actually started to do it, because I had nothing else to do, because like I was in a class, you know, it's like it was the first thing we did every day when I was in the nuns community. You know, you did a meditation. You know, it's boring if you're not actually doing it, so you might as well do it. I was really childish. What can I tell you? You know, I would say maybe, I don't know, a couple months maybe. I mean, if you know, first it just gets easier to do. If you don't like it, it just becomes easier to do because you know, you're doing it, you know. Um, Seeing benefit from it can take longer, especially if you have the kind of mindset I had of just like not wanting to like it. Again, you know,
That's the
that just
key.
depends on you. It just, you know,
That's the key. You have to want.
yes. And you have to make a decision. Like first, you have to make a decision to try it because you're not going to necessarily want it. There are all sorts of things in life that we, you know, have to learn to do, but we don't really want to, you know. I mean, that's just life, isn't it? And it's part of growing up, you know, and taking responsibilities. There are all sorts of things we have to do. And so when you're working on your mind, when you decide, okay, I would like to be a better person, you know, the things you have to do that you're not going to want to do, you know, like look and go, oh, that wasn't very nice. Oh, that thought was really kind of ugly. You know, you have to look, you have to get from, you know, comfortable with looking at your mind and what your thoughts are, you know. So, and you have to recognize what obstacles you're putting in your way. That, you know, it's just like, you know, until I drop this attitude, of course it's not going to benefit me. You know, that kind of thing. You have to be honest with yourself to see that it's not that the meditation isn't working, it's that you're not really meditating. So, and that's not about being quiet and still. It's about really trying to focus on what you're doing, you know, and not let yourself get distracted by other things to do. And a lot of people start with things like walking meditation, you know, so that they're not worried about their squirmy body. But eventually, of course, it's good to, you know, sitting quietly, whether you're sitting on a cushion or not, doesn't make any difference, but just sitting quietly with your thoughts and examining your thoughts, doing it with investigation, noticing what patterns of thoughts you have, you know. Do you tend to get stuck in the past? Do you tend to get stuck in daydreaming? Do you tend to get stuck in, you know, I don't know, judging others? Do you tend to get stuck in self-loathing? You know, we want to notice these habits and then recognize that, maybe I can change that. Maybe I will, you know, feel better if I try to work on that habit. What do you think? Those of you who just naturally go to meditation, I rejoice. I hope that for my next life, because I know how beneficial it is. And it's just so cool now that we, you know, it's that we can support it with technology like brain scanning to help those who have to see that in order to try it. You know, I mean, for thousands of years, people didn't need that in order to try it. But there were a lot of people who didn't try it. And maybe, you know, maybe they're born now and they can go, oh, okay. You know, because neuroplasticity is a really new discovery that, you know, because for, you know, when I was young, they taught that, you know, your brain, after a certain point, you can't change it, you know, and now they know that's not true.
Many examples of that in science. Cab drivers. Most of those people were using before, the Waze and the Google Maps. And so the one part of the brain is highly more developed. And the cab driver who uses the Google Maps, that one part of the brain is not as developed.
Because it's not being used. This is what they tell you, you go to the hearing test and you find out you can't hear. They say, by the way, if you don't get hearing aids, your brain will cease to be able to hear those sounds, no matter when you get them. Because if you don't use it, it quits working, so it's the same kind of thing. The more, so so whether we care about whether we have GPS in our brain, I've never had GPS in my mind. So, I'm so grateful for GPS, but it's, this is the thing that we want to cultivate our good qualities. We want to remember that we like having good qualities, that we like people who have good qualities and we want to be one of them, that kind of thing. So all of that's helpful. And that we are not stuck. We are habituated to certain things, and it's really, really hard to change it. And you won't be able to change all. But it's this, it's a process. And at the end of the day, when you've done all your little regret thing, and then you want to rejoice at your effort, not at the, oh, I was successful finally. No, it's I'm really trying. That's the key. It's the effort that's going to make the difference. Okay, I've scared half the room away, so some days are like that. What can I say? Anyway, so I just encourage anybody who's facing a family gathering or any kind of gathering, a friends gathering, where you're nervous about it or you're afraid that some conversation will happen and you don't want it to happen, blah, 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 to really give yourself some pep talk beforehand without expectations, not the kind of pep talk, oh, this time it'll go okay. Well, maybe not. It may not go okay, but that you can handle it. That you have choices and that you can also, it may go exactly like the last time, but you can process it differently, after the fact. A lot more self-forgiveness and forgiveness of the others, We're all screwing up. That's just how it is. So, but we want to rejoice in the, an awful lot of people don't have family. An awful lot of people will be alone. And we want to remember that if that's not our condition, we have, it's kind of like we at least have a starting point for an argument. Other people don't. So it's, having that kind of compassion and remembering that, and some people don't have family, don't have these kind of events, not out of choice, but because they've been left behind. So we just, we want to have loving kindness and compassion, so anyway. Okay. Any last questions for today? Not that I'm looking, paying any attention.
Is part of the conflict in the family sometimes has to do with judgment, being judgmental or non-judgmental?
Oh, what do you think? Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yes. Yes.
I'm thinking, how do I start saying what I'm thinking? Okay. being around family, okay, so say my brother says something to me and I'm thinking, I don't want to put so much value on what he's saying as that being true. So that it won't affect me as much. But is that the way to go about it? Because then I'm thinking he's more important than me.
Well, he could be more important than you in that moment. We want to make everybody else more important in that moment. I know,
don't
but what
understand
about
what that
me?
means. No, I'm not. What do you mean? You mean anytime you're having an exchange with someone and I'm listening to them, they're more important at that moment? Is that what you mean?
I mean that everything gets better when we develop a mind that uses every moment of interaction with others to benefit them. I know. I am so not there yet. You know, but that's the truth. And what we need to remember, what I think what you were asking is, yes, just because someone else says something to us about us doesn't mean they're correct.
Yeah, but I value it so much.
And that may be part of the mistake.
Yeah.
Is, you know, you value perhaps that they are thinking about you and they're da 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 da. What we don't want to do is somehow think that what someone else says is always correct about us, you know.
Yeah.
Only we know, really, you know, and we are a poor judge of our own character, aren't we?
That's what I was gonna say, because I'll get offended,
Yeah.
right? I'll get offended, but
Even if you don't think it's true, it's amazing what we'll do. So even though we, you know, we'll hear something go, I don't think that's true, but we still get offended and hurt. Like it
Yeah.
must be true, you know, I don't know. But we have to watch our mind games around things like that.
you have to watch on what?
Mind games, you know, so but instead of listening through ears that are thinking about me, what are they saying about me? What is what they're doing say about me? What, you know, what does it mean about how they feel about me? You just think about what am I condemning about how I feel about them.
Takes a lot of reflection.
That's why before the fact, you have to reflect a little bit, you know, like, what do you want out of this? Like when I finally decided that when I would go home for family visits, that I wanted to have to just, I'm going because I acknowledge that I want my family, you know, I want to be part of my family. Okay.
That's my initial idea.
Right. Right. And I had to, so when anything would come up, because it used to be, you know, I wanted to go home to find out if I had a perfect family yet. You know, that was really, you know, are they finally going to give me the care and love I deserve? So once I started with this attitude of just, I'm going because I want, you know, I don't want to not go, you know? And so I would just be there for each and, you know, so when I was dealing with my father, I would just be there for him. And I quit thinking about whether or not whatever he's doing was good for me. I just wasn't in the picture. Oh my goodness. It's amazing how much you can love people when you don't think about you. It's a much better experience. So, and that helped me heal my relationship with my father before he died. It was good. You know, did I get what I wanted from him? No. Was I ever going to get what I wanted from him? No. Why? Because I'm full of ignorance and all my desires are based in ignorance. So they're distorted. I know, it's just like a lot to think about. So, but it is really amazing how different things are if instead of thinking about what's in it for me, you think about what can I give? What can I bring to this situation? That does not mean after the fact you might decide I'm not going there next year. You know, if it's really toxic for you, you might decide this is not a good way for me to spend my time. You know, I couldn't claim that. You know, I still wanted to be with my family, so I had to figure out how to get along. You know, so, and who did I, so what did I have to do? I had to remove me out of the picture because I was the biggest problem for that. So anyway, it's weird. Anyway, but mostly give yourself a pep talk. Be kind to yourself. The fact that you're going to have expectations and you might get disappointed, but really, and it's the expectations' fault, not them. You know, it's that we're holding too tightly to our point of view. So I will say prayers now. So rejoice in your efforts. Now we're dedicate all the positive potentials we placed in our mind streams to be of benefit to others. It's on page 246 in the text. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, attain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of our merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. The poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then on page 244. Go away. I can't get to the go page because of this stupid,
The Zoom icon bar.
yeah, that little stupid bar. Yes, exactly that. Well, I can't even do that. This is not a good tech day. Okay. So for His Holiness, in the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chinrezi, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until Samsara ends. And then for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, which we found it's in all kinds of pages in the book. Like,
234.
yeah, most books are 234. But it was, and some of them have it like 2 or 3 times. Anyway. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losam father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You are the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings who suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the 3 jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Yay! All right. Thank you. Thank you guys at home. So, hi, Dina. Hi. Hello, Sherry. Hi, Brian.
Thank you, Tendron. It was wonderful. Thank you.
See y'all soon.
See you
Take
soon.
good care.